It's time to get ready. It's time to get ready. It's time to get ready. Time to get ready. Time to get ready. Whoa. Wake up. It's time to get ready. It's time to get ready. It's time to get ready. Time to get ready. Time to get ready. Whoa. Up for another day. Get out the bed and I stretch before I wash my face. To survive, about to take him to another place. And she said I'm Superman to a lowest lane. Side again, no wise enough, the need to clear the way. You gotta go, but to achieve it, you gon' need some faith.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Off the Bench podcast. Welcome to all our listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you may be listening. And for our YouTube subscribers, make sure if you are not a subscriber to like this video, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you are the first to know when our videos go live. Well, what an exciting weekend of sports.
Full of sports.
What a way to rebound from that BS of a Triller pay-per-view that people actually paid $50 for to see Logan Paul face a UFC fighter that really just cashed it in and just laid one down for the bag. But we had NASCAR Talladega, am I right?
We did.
We had UFC have a huge card, one of the best cards in recent history.
A phenomenal card.
Of the year, recent history.
Yeah, phenomenal card.
A lot of NFL news. Things are taking shape before our live YouTube draft coverage. Make sure
Can't wait.
You need to be subscribed if you want to join us for this YouTube live stream.
Mm-hmm.
For all our Spotify listeners, go to our YouTube channel. You follow us on Instagram, Off the Bench Pod. We'll be live on YouTube going over the first round of the NFL draft. And lastly, we might get into some European soccer news, or football as they call it.
Football.
But bro, get into it. What's going on in the world of NASCAR Talladega?
George, I'll be real with you. I missed the first stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not hate me. I am sorry. I am a busy man. But the race, it kind of went the way you expect your traditional restrictor plate racetracks to go, George. I mean, there's, early when everyone gets 4 fresh feel goods and everyone's feeling good on those new tires, some people will be a little bit more prone. They'll run a little bit more too wide action. Some people will jump out of line, make some passes happen. But for the most part, once those tires wore down and everyone got comfortable, they will run single file for a handful of laps. So it was essentially time to pit. Now, the Chevys took an interesting swing, and they even pitted with some Toyota people. Was about 30-something to go. And, it was a well-publicized thing that the Fords had most cars in the field. So it was going to be easier for the Fords to pit together, and keep a collective bunch, which is what you essentially need on the restrictor plate tracks as a whole. But, so the Chevys, like Toyotas, I guess, made a game plan that, hey, you know what? It really screwed us over in the Daytona 500. Let's not let that happen here. Let's pit together. And you know what? They did a pretty good job. I thought all day from the period I tuned in that if there was going to be a Chevy that could probably make something happen, I figured it would have been one of the Hendrick teams. William Byron looked good at times. I was really like keen in on some of the Toyotas. Christopher Bell. I gotta remember, Eric Jones don't drive that 20 no more. Eric Jones looked I said it again. Christopher Bell looked good at times, and then Kyle Busch, who's not really known for his restricted plate racing. Like Kyle Busch, one of the biggest personalities there is in NASCAR. George looked really good. To the point I was like, maybe there's a chance he squeaks one out. Bubba Wallace, a name we wasn't expecting to see even, up front, won a stage. He won stage 2. And he looked like he had I didn't think he had a winning car, George, but I thought if he put himself in the right place at the right time to make an aggressive move, he could possibly win this one. And Martin Truex Jr. looked good as well. So, there was a lot of cars, but I thought the Fords were going to be tough to beat. And then what the race really came down to, George, was about 20 to go. A caution came out, and Brad Keselowski, who I thought might have had the second best car in the field. I thought Joey Logano, his teammate, had the best car in the field, but Brad Keselowski, I think, had probably the second best. Maybe Ryan Blaney maybe had the second best. But regardless, the Penske cars were dominant. All three of them looked good. So Brad Keselowski came down, got 4 fresh tires, and essentially that was the difference, George. When it got down to those later stages, he was able to duck and move and make a lot of aggressive moves to position himself to win the race. Matt DiBenedetto was leading this race with essentially 2 to go. And what happened, George, was the high line got going and the low line got going. And at a restricted plate racetrack where you're going 195 miles per hour, everything happens in a blur. His spotter probably told him, hey, go high. There's a run coming on the high side. And he went up to go block that run and left just the opening for Brad Keselowski to squeak his forward up front. And I felt like once Brad got there, he wasn't going to get past. I didn't see a scenario where he was going to get past. He ended up winning the race. Now we're talking about another new winner this year, George. The theme is for those who don't follow NASCAR is we are seeing a lot of surprise winners. Now, I'm not saying Brad Keselowski is a surprise winner. We picked Brad Keselowski probably to be in the championship for this year and win a handful of races. But the thing here is, George, we got a lot of new names winning races this year, which is going to make the playoff race that more intriguing when it's time for the playoffs. Because a lot of people that nobody thought, like William Byron won a race already. You got Eric Jones who won a race already. You got again, I say Eric Jones, but I mean Christopher Bell. You got Alex Bowman who won a race this year. You got a lot of newcomers that maybe you thought flirted with the idea that maybe they could win a race this year, maybe they can't. Have already won a race this year. Michael McDowell, he's won a race this year. He was also competitive yesterday. So a lot of people were like, maybe they win, maybe they don't, have already won. So now those qualifying spots for the playoffs get real tight. Those teams who were on the cusp that, felt like maybe they could point their way in. That's no longer a thing. You heard yesterday, Matt DiBenedetto said on his radio in the pre-race, George, he told them, hey, we felt, like the way the season is going this year, you can't rely to point your way into the playoffs this year. It's not feasible because so many new winners, and you got to think about the Chase Elliott's who are yet to win, the Kyle Busch who are yet to win, Ryan Blaney. Like, there's a whole bunch of people who haven't won races this year who will win at some point in time, that will get their wins. So he felt they had to be aggressive. He felt they had to win the race, had to put themselves in a position to win the race, and they were up until that last inning. Overall,
standings. My fault.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Go on. Well, I will let you hear.
I'm looking at the standings. So Hamlin is still up. Truex is still up. And Logano rounds out the top 3 with Byron, Blaney, and now Keselowski is in that 6th spot.
Yeah.
So Harvick, Elliott, Larson, and Busch are really starting to dwindle out of those top 6 standings.
And it's crazy because Larson looked as dominant as anybody those first couple of weeks. Larson, you can argue, could have 3 wins on the year this year. He was dominant early. Now restricted plate racing has never been his thing. He got from what I understand, an early wreck early. Took him out of contention. But I don't know if I even would have picked him to win this race either because he just doesn't do well on the restricted plate tracks. But yes, George, some of the people you just listed
this year too.
Yeah,
standings. He's struggling this year. 18th place.
Yeah,
it's not very Kyle Busch like.
No, Kyle Busch is. I mean, you heard me say. I thought early he had a chance to win. He would position himself to do so, and then I don't know what happened. Maybe he just got jumped back, and he just couldn't make his way back to the front. But he also struggled late. It's an interesting season.
Are we? Is this as good as it gets now with Kyle Busch? Are we seeing the beginning of the end?
I think so. Ooh. You know what? Because last year was kind of, a lot of people, and myself included, looked at Kyle Busch like, well, this is a one-off. Because the year before that, he was coming off a championship. So, you were thinking, okay, maybe a championship hangover. But he hasn't looked that dominant, George. Kyle Busch hasn't. I don't think he led much laps. I think he led as much laps in that race yesterday at Talladega as he has all season. he hasn't really done much this year, which is not Kyle Busch. Now, you got to remember, he doesn't have his old crew chief and Adam Stevens anymore. He does not have him no more. He's working with a new crew chief. I think they might even swap teams. So even that 18 team as a whole may not be the same 18 team he was working with for all these years. He's a little bit older, but usually age don't make that much of a difference in NASCAR as long as the equipment's still good. And I still think Kyle Busch is a great driver. I just think something's amiss with there and Joe Gibbs. And Joe Gibbs is not looking as dominant. You know, we can point back to Martin Truex Jr., who, yeah, sure, Martin Truex Jr. looks good, but he got a couple of wins on short tracks, and he might be the best short track driver there is. So you expect him to win at those tracks, you know, George. I mentioned Christopher Bell got a win, but everyone was surprised that he won at that road course early in the year. You know, nobody was picking him to win. So, you know, just stuff like that, George. Joe Gibbs as an organization, I think, has come back. Kevin Harvick, who you mentioned, is a little bit further back in points. He struggles. Stuart Haas as a whole has struggled. And that's where it is. But overall, George, I rate the Talladega race a B. A B.
Oh, wow. B.
I felt at times the race was very stagnant. You know, there wasn't much aggressiveness, and you know, it comes with the territory. It's Talladega, is a restricted plate racetrack. One wreck can take out half the field. You know, so towards the end, you only felt like there was really only the top 4, top 5. If you wasn't in the top 5, you didn't have a chance to win, which isn't the way the old school restricted plate racetrack was. In the old school, if you was in the top 10, you had a chance. You had a fighting chance to get your car to victory lane. Things had just changed. But I enjoyed the race. It wasn't overall the race I was expecting.
So give us a little preview, or give me a preview at least for us for Kansas.
Kansas.
Ooh, Kansas.
Kyle Larson, on average, does pretty well at Kansas. I expect him to be competitive. If Kyle Busch is going to rebound, Kansas will be a good track for him to rebound at. I think Brad Keselowski, again, or Joey Logano will be tough to beat. Kevin Harvick, another 4, I think will be tough to beat. A dark horse I will get people to look out for.
Okay.
I would be on the cusp of looking out for a driver who's looking to get his first win of the year. And it's going to be kind of shocking that he had, maybe to some people, it's shocking he hasn't got a win yet. Maybe, you know, to some people it isn't. But I'm really looking forward to not Ryan Blaney. I just had his name in my mind. Why does his name
Ryan Newman?
Definitely not Ryan Newman. He's a Ford driver. I know Eric Almirola. I think, I think he senses urgency. I think they're going to really push to get even Kevin Harvick, his teammate. I think will be in competition to win this race. I think the Fords will be the class of the field at Kansas. Maybe Kyle Larson has something to say about that.
Okay. All right. Whew. That was a great fucking NASCAR update. But God bless Dana White. And you know what? I peeped. I don't know if you peeped, but I peeped when this time, it was around this time last year when Dana White said, we're going to have Fight Island. And everyone was like, how could you hold an event in the middle of a pandemic? You fool, you idiot, Dana White. How could you? And now, all of a sudden, that we've had multiple great fights, great UFC events to start the year. All of a sudden, they're like, well, bless Dana White for doing his thing during... Like, no, hold on to your word. You were hating on him last year.
Yep.
Don't give him love this year, because now this card was absolutely amazing. Amazing card. And I already got so many DMs, so many mentions on Twitter, because of course Masvidal got his ass beat, and that was a great photo op they had when he got knocked out. And I had to look at people say, "Oh, my name's Jorge. You're wondering how I got here." It's like, well, yes, but no. But damn it, Masvidal. And he was talking some good shit right leading into the UFC fight. And he got dominated, honestly. in my humble opinion. He looked like he got dominated. And for those of you that are unaware, who are only Spotify listeners, if you follow us on Off the Bench Pod on Instagram, we had a whole IG live with our UFC correspondent. And it was just the entire night was a reaction type of stream, type of Instagram live, despite their 1 hour limitations. We made it work. Roland made it work. Matt made it work. And thank you to everyone who tuned in there. But you guys need to follow us on Instagram if you want to be a part of the action on Instagram Live.
Yeah, big shout out to Matt for joining me. And I know you was busy. I know you was out. You had prior engagements. And I really, really wanted to give our fans on IG something to, look forward to. It was a big card. I knew I was watching it. And as I thought to myself before the card, I was like, you know what? Why not? Why not, host a watch party essentially with a couple of our viewers on IG. And shout out to everybody who tuned in. Some people had it, I understand you can't. It's hard for people to tune into a whole 2 hour stream. I understand, but shout out to the people who stopped by, showed love, and they tuned in for a little bit and then they had to go. And my response to that is thank you. Just thank you for tuning in. Because like George said, that card was stacked. Probably the best card in recent memory. You had going into it, the headline, obviously, Masvidal, Usman, welterweight title, part 2. This time, no built-in excuse for Masvidal of, hey, I took this fight of 6 days' notice. No, that was not the case. You had your training camp. And you had you heard him in the preview, George. In the first matchup after the fight, he was sitting in his corner. He said, "Give me a full training camp. I can beat this guy." I think he said 6 weeks to be exact. He said, "Give me 6 weeks and I can beat this guy." Usman, however's response to that was, "I keep getting better. I'm not the same fighter you fought, back then." And Masvidal made the point, "Oh, his striking is exactly the same. I don't see nothing different." And you know what? I think Masvidal went into the fight knowing, hey, he's probably got the upper hand. But what Masvidal has in his corner is the ability to literally put somebody out with a single punch. He has that ability.
He does.
So when even if somebody's significantly handicapped in a fight where he's not going to dominate the wrestling game, any clinch work he's going to be worked. And even as far as boxing, I felt Usman might have been even with him. When someone has the ability to just knock you out with one punch, it's an equalizer. And Usman showed that. Usman showed the respect level to Masvidal's punching abilities, where he was working a lot of movement. He was in and out. He was in and out. He was in and out. He was making sure he didn't give Masvidal a chance to really line him up for that one-time shot. And then it ironically ended up being Usman delivering the one hot, that one punch blow to put Masvidal out. Which for those who tune in, know I got out my seat for that one. That was a spectacular knockout by our champion Usman. But that's not the fight that stole the show to me, George. As good as the fight that was, Thug Rose.
I was just gonna bring up Rose.
Thug Rose absolutely stole the show, because we're talking about Wei Lee, who we just don't have the evidence on, George. There's just not enough tape there.
She only had one loss going in.
Yes. And she looked great in just about every fight. And even in that fight with Joanna, where we were like, man, that's the fight of the year. She looked great in that fight. There just wasn't enough tape, and it was everyone. It was a gut instinct. Matt actually had Wei Lee winning that fight. I had Thug Rose winning, and it was just off the thought that I know Thug Rose shows up in big moments. And when she was in the corner, a lot of people couldn't pick up. She was saying, "I'm the best. I'm the best." This is before the fight even takes place. She's mouthing to herself as Bruce Buffer introduces her. I'm the best. I'm the best. Telling herself, "I'm the best." Psychologically getting herself ready.
Oh yeah, she's mentally there. She was mentally like, I don't care what's going on right now. I'm the
No.
best in this fucking ring right now.
In this ring. I'm not champion, but I might as well be.
Yeah.
And then after the fight, her coach told you, I told you, you the baddest mother, in this business. And she said, I'm the best. Yes, Rose. Yes, Thug Rose. You are, in fact, the best. And another takeaway, let's put some respect on Valentina Shevchenko's name. How about that? Let's put some respect on Valentina Shevchenko's name. Because a lot of people point out, like, okay, she lost twice to Amanda Nunes. In competitive fights, may I add, lost twice to Amanda Nunes, who everyone considers the GOAT. And it was competitive. It's not like she was out there just getting hurt. So now to the point where Dana White, it's acknowledging, hey, you know what? If they both want to make this fight, let's make this fight. I don't care about the record. Throw that record aside. We need Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes for the undisputed GOAT title. They don't even have to put none of their actual titles on the line. I don't care about that. You can keep those to the side.
And here's the thing. Jessica Andrade is no scrub. She ain't
no
scrub.
No. Oh, no. Not in the slightest. She's the number one ranked contender for a reason.
Yeah.
She's as good as they get. There's levels to this. Valentina Shevchenko is on a whole nother level, which is why I think you have to, George, get Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes. It's the fight to me. And you could do that later in the year. It could be on a December card, the New Year card to end the year. What a better way to end the year. You're giving us the undisputed two best female fighters there is in the world. Now, can I think Thug Rose is in there? Sure. But she has to prove the level of dominance that Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes consistently displayed. The card was amazing. Obviously, the two those two injuries.
Yeah.
The Chris Weidman.
And you hate to see it, honestly.
Yeah,
you hate to see it.
It's a hurt business. These guys get paid to literally hurt people. But you've seen, the Chris Weidman one. That was tough. It was tough to literally watch that. And Uriah Hall immediately he didn't want to celebrate. He didn't want to interview. The man was.
You don't want to literally break a man's leg.
Because he
like you say you're going to, but you don't actually want to do it.
He respects Chris Weidman.
Yeah, especially if the respect is there. You don't want to do it. Like if you hate the dude, then yeah, you want to break his chin, whatever.
Yeah.
If the respect factor is there, it's one of the best fights on the card. Like you hate to see it, and it's just like, how can I celebrate? That's a possible career ender.
Yeah.
Like I just fucked this man's life up.
And Uriah Hall immediately came on the mic. He said, "When he gets well, I don't care if he, whatever.
We'll have another rematch.
I owe him this fight, which is like spoke value to Uriah Hall. Doesn't even count this win.
Yeah.
Uriah Hall doesn't even look at this. It was the first strike thrown in the fight that led to this injury. Absolutely gruesome injury. Yeah. There's nothing else to really say about that. It hurts.
I'll say this though: if you pay $50 for Triller, but didn't pay money for the UFC, you need to
reevaluate your life. Yeah, reevaluate your life.
Just stay home.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if your state lifted up their mandates. Stay home. Don't touch your credit card. Don't touch your debit card.
Nope.
Just stay home.
Because this card was honestly worth more than $69.99. I'll be real with you. This card was worth more than that much. Because
this is like over $100 worth of pay-per-views. Imagine the tickets that they were selling.
Oh yeah. The car sold out in minutes, and for good reason. For good reason.
I believe this was this was held in Jacksonville, right?
Yep.
This was held in Jacksonville, and I was this close to going, but and I looked at the flight and the hotel plus the ticket. And I'm like, damn, I'm close, and I'm nearing $1,000 for this one fight. Ooh, maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Next time.
But moving on, listen. This is a very strange year. Okay, I'll preface it by saying this. It's a very strange year. We had COVID hit last year. And, oops, I'm sorry, I can't say that on YouTube or else we'll be demonetized. We had the thing happen last year. We had the thing happen last year, shut off all our sports. David Fizdale got fired. Mike Miller got let go. The Knicks were in shambles. The Yankees were always that one play away from making it back to the World Series. And then they just shit the bed in the playoffs in a shortened season. So this year you had a lot of promise with the Yankees. You have a full season, full spring training with Garrett Cole. No excuses. You have Hiroshika, Kyle Hiroshika, I believe his name is. Back up to Gary Sanchez. Probably the best catcher on the roster right now, as much as Aaron Boone doesn't want to admit it. But you trade for Tylon, you sign Corey Kluber. It's pretty much World Series or bust at this point.
Essentially.
Everyone's on the hot seat, or at least they should be. Versus you look at the Knicks, it's, oh, well, we're going to tank for whoever's going to be the best prospect again, and we're just going to build these young assets. Fast forward to April. The Knicks are on the longest winning streak currently in the NBA, are in the top 4 seeds of the NBA in the Eastern Conference, and the New York Yankees are sharing the worst record in baseball. Okay. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
First things first. If Papa Steinbrenner was still alive, this Yankees team would be torn apart immediately. Boone would be fired. Judge would be traded. Stanton would be traded. The only person I think would stay is Garrett Cole, because he's been the most consistent player out of there. Even Aroldis Chapman, you can argue, is going to get traded. He could have been traded last year if Papa Steinbrenner was still alive, because he blew a lot of saves. So much so that they had to put Losagia in the previous game against Cleveland for a save. Losagia, he's a relief pitcher. He's not a closer. He's no closer. Now, there's been Yankees teams that have been bad in the past, been god-awful. Recently, even further back in the 90s, before they went on that run with Jeter and Mariano and those boys, the Bronx Bombers, this team has the talent to not be bad. And I thought that Gio of the Urshela would have been the signal to say, hey, you know what, maybe this analytics thing isn't all that's cracked up to be, because Gio Urshela was supposed to be a nobody third baseman who comes in, maybe he's a designated hitter, pinch hitter, and is just a body to fill at third base. And now he's your everyday third baseman. And he's hitting runs. He's hitting home runs. He's batting runs in. His on-base percentage is probably the highest on the team, if not one of. And he just denied all your analytics. And you're looking at this team right now with all the talent with Giancarlo Stanton, Judge, DJ LeMahieu, Garrett Cole. This team should be atop the AL East, if not fighting for the top of the AL East. So there's really only 2 people that you can blame for this demise. It's Aaron Boone, who, mind you, before he became the manager, didn't do jack shit with the Yankees. He did zilch. He had one highlight. That's it. His career might as well be the butt fumble, because he had that one play, and then the rest of his career just plummeted. Just nothing. You can't find another highlight worth a damn to put on SportsCenter or even on Twitter outside of the one highlight he has to his name. And, of course, Brian Cashman, because there's so many better pitchers than Corey Kluber on the market. You instead of signing Bryce Harper to the max deal that he wanted, you trade for Giancarlo Stanton, who's cheaper, but injury prone. Coming off a huge injury. Had no idea how he's going to play. So those 2 guys immediately should be fired. They should be fired, because they've built a team that's based on analytics, based on numbers, and the numbers are lying to you. And I know they say numbers never lie, but they are lying to you. Corey Kluber is not the same Corey Kluber that we once believed he was. He has, I believe he has like a 5 ERA right now, if not a 4 ERA. And that's terrible. And Tylon he was on the Pirates, and they're like, well, he had Tommy John surgery, and then he came back last year. He was okay. He's not a game changer. Where's the game changer? It's Garrett Cole and anybody else. Montgomery is still too young to put too much of your stock in. And they just called up Devi Garcia. And then they had, I forget who they just optioned for an alternate site. I think it was Domingo Herman. I think it was, fact check me on that. But after one bad start by Domingo Herman, who was supposed to be the future ace of the team, mind you, when he came up from their farm system, he gets sent to the alternate site because he just played terribly. Like, this is what the fuck is going on? And no one can hit. Gary Sanchez started off the season hitting bombs, and now he's striking out like the old Gary Sanchez we knew back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean last year, the year before that, ever since he got called up. Aaron Judge all of a sudden is injured, which now it seems to me, why do you keep Aaron Judge? Why would you re-sign him to a huge deal? Because it's not like the dude's doing anything for you. No. He's basically a home run hitter, and then that's it. That's it. LeMahieu is the best player you have, but he's basically he plays the entire infield. Shortstop, first baseman, second baseman. If Gio Urshela wasn't there, he'd be playing third base.
I think if you're the Yankees, you have to look at your division. The
Red Sox traded Mookie Betts last year, and now they're in first place. Yeah. They should not be in first place.
And the Yankees are not too long ago off a clean sweep from the Tampa Bay Rays, where they got swept 3-0 in their series, and none of those games were really even all that competitive. You point back to their recent series with the Cleveland Indians. Sure, they won the series, but nobody's looking at Cleveland as a World Series threat, So, there is reason to be concerned if you're a Yankees fan. I know we talked briefly before in a recent episode about Gary Sanchez. I'm a belief you get rid of him now.
Trade him from crumbs, in my opinion. Just trade him for crumbs. I don't care if it's a player on single A that's never going to reach triple A. Just send him down to give us your worst ranked prospects for Gary Sanchez. I don't care at this point. Give us cash consideration. Give us $1. Give us about $350 for Gary Sanchez. I want about $350 for Gary Sanchez.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous with Gary because at what point in time, if you're a Yankee fan, do you just say enough is enough with that guy? He strikes out more than he gets on base. Sure, he's a home run threat, but you have enough of those already in your lineup to the point where it's like, okay, what's the point? You need more players like DJ LeMahieu, who's just going to get on big base. Now, Aaron Hicks, when healthy, is that guy. Question what that is when healthy. You pointed out to Aaron Judge, his injury history is starting to rack up, and Giancarlo Stanton just has never played up to the value of his contract in a header friendly ballpark. He struggles to get on base. It's shocking.
And it's sad because you have so let's say that for the just to play devil's advocate, that you say, okay, well, we're going to re-sign Judge, we're going to keep Stanton for the remainder of his deal because it's too expensive to get rid of him for analytics, right? Because all of a sudden this is the New York Athletics, and we care about money and cash. And we're the richest teams in the world. That other side of the outfield, you bring back Brett Gardner as the veteran leader, but he doesn't do jack shit outside of that veteran leadership. Aaron Hicks is by far the worst outfielder in baseball right now. His batting average is abysmal, and you have no one else besides that. Who do you put out there? They just made Jay Bruce retire because they don't want to pay him the money he's owed.
Nope.
And it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You let so many good players walk out in free agency because you're lowballing. You're trying to get cheap options because of the way Moneyball did it so many years ago. And here's the thing. I love the movie Moneyball. It's a great movie. It's a great 100, as close to 100% real story about the Oakland A's and their miracle run to win all those games in a row to break the MLB record. But the thing is, they didn't win a championship. the Red Sox won a championship, but then they got that taken away.
Yep.
So it's like, who really has been winning on a consistent basis in any sport with analytics? The Rockets right now, we'll get into that in a bit, but they're the joke of the league in NBA right now. In the NBA, they're the joke of the league. And there's really no other sport outside the NBA and baseball that do analytics.
No.
And you look at the teams that you do, the Sixers, before they decided to say, fuck it, we're just going to build around Embiid and Simmons, they were terrible under analytics. Just using analytics, once they got rid of that system, they're like, oh, now we can focus on basketball.
I don't know what the point of analytics really is in sports. It's nothing more about well-defined numbers. Like I don't need your analytics to tell me a left-handed hitter will struggle against a left-handed pitcher. Don't need your analytics to tell me that.
I understand it can be helpful, but to base
organization,
team,
exactly. To build your team, to build your team off sheer analytics is ridiculous to me. And I feel like the Yankees did a poor job of, trying to be aggressive with spending money and also trying to respect analytics, because the Giancarlo Stanton move wasn't based on analytics. You can't even sell that as analytics because he was just a home run hitter really in Miami. What he was known for, hitting home runs. He wasn't known to get on base. He wasn't known to really steal base. He was an all right glove, sure, but like he wasn't never really an all base guy. So then you pair that up with a guy like Aaron Judge, who, okay, sure, could Aaron Judge, go 2-for-4, on a couple of nights given? Sure, he can. But is he also more than likely to go 1-for-4? Sure. 0-for-3? Sure. Because that's essentially, you got to remember. Here's the thing. Here's the wild story. Here's what it really comes down to. Here's the bread and the butter of the New York Yankees. And it falls a good chunk on Aaron Boone. They have, because you can look at what the Dodgers have done. The Dodgers have done essentially a reverse Yankees. The Dodgers have said, yeah, there's analytics, and sure, I'll listen to them, but I'm just going to get the best available pieces. Mookie Betts wasn't an analytics move. Mookie Betts was arguably the best player in baseball. Why not go get him?
Yep.
And the Yankees probably were thinking, hey, we probably could try to get Mookie Betts. We could try. But why do that? We have enough outfitters. We got Aaron Hicks and Brennan, and we got Brett Gardner and Aaron Judge. We're fine. We're fine. No.
And I really do blame a lot of these Yankees fans who saw that emotion out of Brett Gardner when he was banging on the roof of the dugout, just getting angry at the umps. And it's just like, oh, yeah, that's the kind of energy we need. But he doesn't, like, before you could argue that, okay, maybe Brett Gardner, he can get on base, he can steal bases for you, and that's how that's his role with the team.
Yeah.
He's fast, he can steal bases, but he doesn't do that anymore. He's far from that now.
Yeah.
And and at this point he's on the roster just as a courtesy, just because of his impact on the teams in the past.
Just a familiar face.
Yeah. And Stanton, remember, he's still in that $13 million deal. He's only 4 years into it. He's only 4 years. This is 9 more years, Yankees fans. You could have had Bryce Harper. You could have had Mookie. You could have had what's his name in not Fernando Tatis. Machado. You could have had Machado.
Manny Machado.
You could have had all these pieces, and sure, you could have said, okay, maybe Machado and Urshela wouldn't have worked at third base, but you could have made it work. The right manager would have found a way to make it work with Machado and Urshela at third base.
Yeah, the right manager, and that's the key word: the right manager.
And Aaron Boone isn't. And Aaron Boone, he doesn't seem like the manager type. Like, and I remember a couple years ago when Aaron Boone first got hired, everyone was praising the move, because now it's like, oh, Joe Girardi, he's always mean to the players. This is a player's coach. He was always mean to Gary Sanchez. And now, a couple years into Boone's tenure, I'm like, yeah, I can see why Joe Girardi was a dick to Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
I can see why he was giving him a lot of shit.
Hard time. I'm giving him a hard time.
Yeah, giving him a huge, one of the hardest times that a player could ever get.
But also remember, it was those years under Girardi Girardi, where Gary Sanchez had some of his better years.
Exactly. And
So
Girardi, he is a former player as well, so he knows about the life, and he's been there and done that. And Boone, he's you could say he's in that similar situation, but he didn't have the same impact Girardi did
no,
as a player.
no.
And he's just sucking up to the players.
Aaron Boone to me just seems like a player he's a yes man. I don't
Yes.
see him really out there trying to lift his players.
Yes.
You know, and backtrack on Brett Gardner, it's almost like a similar situation with Miguel Cabrera in Detroit. He's there because he's a familiar face to the organization.
Yeah.
Miguel Cabrera is not Miguel Cabrera.
Same Miguel Cabrera that we knew back in the day.
Yeah, back in our days growing up. No.
Yeah.
He's just Miguel Cabrera there to do, to have leadership purposes. But my problem, my thing with that is you could have gone elsewhere for leadership purposes. When it was instead of giving Giancarlo the deal that they went ahead and got, they could have got the center fielder. His name escapes me. He played for the Nationals. He was on that national winning team. And now he plays for the Angels. And now he's bringing leadership over there to Los Angeles, along with helping Mike Trout. I can't remember his name, but great player. And they could have paid him. He would have been a lot more well worth the money than giving up to Mike Giancarlo Stanton. At this point, I feel like you can't have a roster that consists of Aaron Judge, Aaron Hicks, Giancarlo, and Gary Sanchez. Because neither one of those guys are on-base guys. And it comes down to me just as simple as that. You need guys to get on base, not hit home runs. This is not the 90s anymore. Pitchers are a lot better than what they were back then. We got guys who clock 100 religiously now. It's
you look at George Springer that was available, that signed with the Blue Jays on a 1-year deal, no less. You could have got him from the rival Astros.
Yeah.
Could have gotten him, even though, you could make the argument that, the trash can or whatever. But the old Yankees, the old evil empire, were just like, you know what? Our rival's best player is in free agency. Let's go grab him.
Go get him.
Let's go get him right now. Pay him whatever he needs. And it's just so disheartening to see what this Yankees have become, because they're no longer about baseball. And you said it, Aaron Boone is a yes man. Whatever Brian Cashman says, this is how you need to manage the players. This is who you need to start in the lineup.
By the way, they're down 1-0 right now to the Baltimore Orioles.
The Orioles against Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey, who was out of the league last year. Oh my goodness, this Yankees. And honestly, looking at the rest of the season, because it is a full 162 game season. It's a full season. There's no stops for COVID. Well, there are stops for COVID, but there's more flexibility now to make up those games that have been postponed.
You look at it right now, George. They're in a series with the Orioles. Then they get Detroit. Those are two winnable series, right? Then you get to the Astros. You get to the Astros.
Sweeps.
You go to the Astros where, it could be a little bit competitive. And then you get to the Nationals, which is probably the first series of the three I just listed. You're probably more likely going to lose.
Yeah.
And that's because the Nationals are such a well-built team. And then you play the Rays again, who just swept you. So you're in a situation where you have to beat the Baltimore Orioles. You have to beat the Detroit Tigers. You almost have to beat the Houston Astros. Because after that, you're for sure going to lose to the Nationals. I can promise you that. And then you'll probably for sure lose to the Rays, who just swept you.
It would not surprise me if the Yankees lose this series to the Baltimore Orioles. It would not surprise me whatsoever.
I think if they won 3 this series, because it's a 4-game series, I believe. If they won 3 this series, there has to be some moves being made. You can't, because at that point, what's salvageable? You're top of your roster.
Listen, Matt Harvey used to be the Dark Knight a couple years ago. He was the face of the Mets.
Yes, he was the ace.
He was the ace. DeGrom and Syndergaard. It was the 3-headed monster in the pitching mound.
Yeah.
And then he just wet the bed and just went downhill, and now he's on the Orioles. If you lose to Matt Harvey, I'm done. I'm done with Aaron Boone. I'm done with Brian Cashman. Call me when you get an actual manager Call me when you start making legit moves to improve this team, because it's a joke. It's an embarrassment. It almost feels like when the Knicks traded all that compensation for Eddie Curry, for him not to see the court for a full season.
Yep. And to talk about another baseball team, George, that who was doing a hot rebuild for a minute there and is starting to turn things around very quickly. What about the San Diego Padres? Because now they are, I think, to be the biggest competition. Many people would agree to the Dodgers. If they're going to be a team that really digs their cleats in to really give the Dodgers a run for their money, it's going to be the Padres. And then, funny enough, Manny Machado, a guy the Yankees could have had, signed with the Padres and is looking as good as we have ever seen him. So, George, the Padres, what do you think about this possible new rivalry between, well, I can't say new rivalry because the Padres and the Dodgers, same division.
It's a rivalry that is well overdue, because for years, the Dodgers, even when the Dodgers were having bad years, they would obliterate the Padres. Yeah. It was back in the day, it was just, you would just watch the Chargers. No one watches the Padres. It was a Chargers town. Chargers are out now, and the Padres are pouncing on this opportunity to claim San Diego. They made so many moves. They feel like what the Yankees were in the past. Yeah. Where they're making these moves. Like, I don't care if we already signed XYZ player. We're going to sign another player, whatever high caliber player that's going to improve the team. Mm-hmm. Even though we already have a ton of capital and we're spending a lot of money on these players, there's no cap space, so fuck it, we'll go all in. Yeah, they went all in on their moves, and this is literally now between the Dodgers and the Padres as an NLCS competition, because there's no other way you can have it. There's no other way. The Braves aren't good enough to get it done against the Dodgers. Not the Nationals. Not even the Cardinals, who can argue, can make it competitive with the Dodgers. Not that Cardinals can make it competitive. Yeah, but is Nolan Arenado enough? Because you have Flaherty and then no one else. And Flaherty isn't even having the ace-type season that they were expecting from him. Mm-mm. So it's just, who's out there? The Mets aren't going to compete. They can possibly... The Mets will only compete, because they will only compete because of DeGrom. I mean, if they can get the lineup in order, they can make some noise. Because, I mean, when you have a Noah Syndergaard and a Jacob DeGrom, I don't care if Noah Syndergaard not the Noah Syndergaard we know him to be. And come postseason, he's gonna dig those cleats in. Yeah. We're gonna see the best Noah Syndergaard. So you could argue they might have the best 1-2 pitching combination to beat the Dodgers. But right now they only have Francisco Lindor. Yeah, they have Carlos Carrasco pitching, but he came off cancer last year. Yep. He's still a little injury prone. Yep. You can't give him the full over 100 pitches. No. So you have to be very careful with Carlos Carrasco and how you get him out on the mound whenever he gets healthy. And it's just Francisco, like who? J.D. Davis? Alonso isn't the same Pete Alonso that broke Aaron Judge's home run records a few years ago. No. So it's just, even though the Lindor move is meant to alleviate the pressure from Alonso, he's still not hitting bombs like he used to. No. And the Mets are still, they beat the Marlins off a couple of weeks ago. They beat the Marlins off a botched call from the umps that wasn't reviewable, and they had a walk-off botch. So it's just that there's difficulty to find competition for the Dodgers, and even in the AL, it's tough to find competition, because it was really the Rays, and the Rays could have won the World Series had they kept Glasnow in for the entirety of the game, or at least the eighth. Yeah. And pulled him way too early. So I like the Padres and what they're doing. I just hope they get a high enough seed in the playoffs where they can avoid the Dodgers up until the NLCS.
I think they're going to need Yu Darvish to be everything Yu Darvish was supposed to be. And I mean that in the sense of not what they need what the Texan Rangers were supposed to get when they got Yu Darvish. You remember when Yu Darvish first broke on the scene, he had a couple of really good. That's the Yu Darvish they're going to need to see, because he's going to have to will the team with his arm. Now, they have other good arms, don't get me wrong.
And they're top in there. They got Joe Musgrove.
So, and then you look at their old top prospect in Will Myers, who, struggled, when he was just the lone guy there. Now, when he's asked to bat a little bit lower down in the totem pole, you see him starting to have a little bit more of a bounce back in his game. He no longer has to carry the weight. When you look at, you got Machado and the young kid, last name escapes me.
Not Tatis.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
Fernando Tatis. And here's the thing about Tatis, if you don't mind me saying, I'm concerned about him right now. Currently, where we are in the season, he's striking out way too much for me.
Yeah, I think he's getting a little
way too much.
I think he's getting really aggressive at the plate. I think last year you saw he let a lot of pitches come to him.
Yes.
And that also comes with scouting report, George. Like a lot more pitchers understand the threat this kid is. So let's not just leave a couple over the plate and see what he does with them. No. Now they're forcing him to be patient with a lot of calls. And he's very aggressive. He really wants to put the ball in play. And I think that comes with time. I feel like as he gets older,
the good thing is he's still young. He's
so young.
They extended him to a 14-year deal, which means he's never leaving the Padres.
No, never.
He's never leaving the Padres, no matter what the deal is. And they have a nice rotation. And you said it's the best rotation to match up with the Dodgers, because while the Mets have the good 1-2, the Padres have Blake Snell. They have Musgrove in that as a number 4. They have
Darvish, yeah. So they would need essentially Jacob deGrom to do a Madison Bumgarner. He would have to put on a pitching performance of the decade for the Mets, like where he's pitching every other night. Where he's pitching.
Bumgarner, I have concerns over Rob Manfred and why he still has a job. Rob Manfred needs to, until he says Madison Bumgarner's no-hitter counts, despite it being 7 innings. Because remember, it wasn't an established rule that doubleheaders are 7 innings. Nope. You, Rob Manfred, made it so that these doubleheaders, the one game is 7 innings. So by your rule, this no-hitter should count. I don't care if it's been 7 innings. I don't care if you said it was 5 innings. If you got a no-hitter and that's the end of the game, you got a no-hitter.
No-hitter, yep.
There's no reason why Madison Bumgarner should not be credited with a no-hitter.
I agree.
No reason.
But we talked about Rob in other videos to let people know where we really stand with this guy as a head guy here in the MLB.
It's getting very hard to be proud of as a baseball fan to say, yeah, my commissioner, he's doing real. And the other thing is, why don't you get a hot mic on the umps? The NBA's already done it in their replay reviews, and just say, after further review, the ruling on the play is blah or blah blah blah, and this is the reason. Meanwhile, all we get is a fist saying it's a strike, or the arms waving that it's safe. There's no explanation. There's no going into what they were reviewing in the first place. We all have to guess. No one's communicating anything to us. So what the fuck are you doing? Get with the times, at least in that aspect. Don't change the game. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that just falls on the fact that just go back to touch back on what we were talking about. They're in shambles. They need help. Baseball. We pointed out plenty of enough proof on what why we think that the organization as a whole is in trouble. But to save everyone that agony of listening to us ranting again, who do you think is your pre World Series matchup? Before we switch off topic,
it's tough to as far as the AL representative. It's tough to go against the Rays, man. I like that the Red Sox came back from the dead after last year, where everyone was like, the Red Sox are a joke again. They traded their best player, Mookie Betts, for money and people to put in their farm system in the middle of a pandemic, and just say, you know what, it's the Red Sox and they're making moves. But I like that the Rays are staying consistent despite not having Blake Snell. And Blake Snell was a big part of their World Series run last year.
Yeah.
And a lot of their players have stepped up big this year, and they're doing what they need to get done. Now, the Red Sox have had a tremendous start to the year, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the Rays representing the American League and the National League. I really, because Kershaw already has his, so it's done. You got your World Series ring, but I want the Padres to make it, man. I want this all to come together for the Padres and say, look at all these moves we made. Everyone was saying like we were mistakes for being a small market team and making all these big moves, blah blah blah. Go all in, and finish it off with the World Series appearance, not a win, but an appearance. Because I'm not ready to say they can beat a team like the Rays just yet.
So when I think about it, George, I think the NL is going to come down to the two teams we mentioned. Maybe the Cardinals can have something to say with it. I still love what the Braves are made of. I just don't. I worry about that rotation a little bit too much. I'm not sold on their pitching rotation.
The Braves don't have a bullpen right now.
Yeah, like there's just too much question marks when it comes to their pitching. So I'm just gonna go on a gut feeling and think the Dodgers will find a way to get there again. They'll probably have to beat the Padres to do it, but Padres are still young. I think they're still learning how to win. Up and down from one through bottom, they're stacked. The rotation's still really, really good. Bullpen still fine. I think they get there. Now, you mentioned the AL is where it gets a little difficult because, the Rays, although I think they'll again be tough to beat. I'm not 100% sold that a lot of Blake Snell's magic last year didn't carry them to where they got to, if that makes sense. I look at a team like the Royals, who are 14-7, as good as any team in the MLB is looking right now. Although, am I sold the Royals really going to be there at the end? Not really. They also, too, have question marks where I'm like, I got to see it to believe it.
I'll say this. Danny Duffy is having a great start to this season.
Yeah.
He's having a great start. He's had back-to-back games where he has not allowed a run against the Tigers and against the Rays themselves.
Right.
He went 6 innings against the Rays. They lost 1-4, but that's mostly on the bullpen.
Yeah. Majority
giving up that game.
And that's why
100%.
That's why I worry about the Royals, because their bullpen is very much questioned.
Yeah, but he blanked out Cleveland when he went 6 innings, 5 strikeouts. Just recently, on the 25th of April, when they played the Tigers, he went 5 innings, 8 strikeouts, won that game 4-0. And his whip's getting a lot better.
He's having a phenomenal year. The Red Sox, I don't think, will finish as the AL East best team. I'm still not sure they'll be better than the Blue Jays. I really love what Toronto's starting to do there with that lineup. I think they're starting to
they could be the wild card, the dark horse.
Yeah, I think they're for sure the team in the AL East. A lot of people are paying attention to the Yankees and their struggles, and the Rays being there, and the Red Sox, with that resurgence. And not talking enough about what Toronto's there. Toronto's in the perfect situation. They're only a game behind Tampa. Tampa is right now.
Yeah.
So 3 games back of the lead. They'll still be tough. I look at a team though like the Athletics, who, if they can keep the pitching, will be a tough. Their lineup is as tough as they come. They got a really tough lineup to go. All their hitters put the ball, in play. They don't strike out a lot. They don't beat themselves. They force you to beat them. And when I look at the AL, not too many teams' pitching rotation scare me. I look at the Rays with a solid pitching rotation. You look at the Yankees, who should, on paper, have a good rotation. You look at the Astros themselves, who has a decent rotation. The Mariners was a sneaky good rotation. And I think the Athletics, pound for pound, will be there at the end. Now, I think they'll be in the ALCS. I think they'll probably have to beat a team like Tampa if the Royals continue what they're up to. Maybe they'll be them in the Royals. If Toronto holds true to my pick of surprising a lot of people, maybe they'll have to beat Toronto. But I think it's going to be the Athletics to somebody. And every year, George, there's always that team you don't expect to make it there. You remember last year I called it. I said the Breeze were that team.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes out because they had just got Acuna Jr. And then, it was look out. He's about to get real there, Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
And you see what happened. They turned that thing around. Acuna Jr. had an amazing year.
Yeah.
Came up short in the end. I think Toronto has the capability to be that team this year. But in the end,
I could see Oakland being that team because they're doing a lot of good things after losing Marcus Semien to the Blue Jays in the offseason.
Which was a big loss.
Yes,
big loss.
And that was the question going into this offseason is that Marcus Semien was going to go for the bag, and he's a Gold Glover. He's a Gold Glove winner,
which he did.
And it's just like, how do you replace that? Because Marcus Semien was the most consistent player on both sides of the ball, just offense and defensively, for the Oakland A's. The primary reason, I would say, that they made the playoffs was because of Marcus Semien's ability to steal bases, his on-base percentage, his ability to hit the ball right where you need to, not have to hit bombs every single time. He'll be okay settling for a single or extending for a double if the play is there and making sure his guys come home. Marcus Semien, he's that guy. And for them to keep pace with the rest of the American League, kudos to them, man. That's a solid team to be on the lookout.
So in the end, I got the A's versus the Dodgers. We'll hold off on World Series picks as we get later into the year.
Wow. Okay. All right, we got to dive into the NFL real quick because as my green screen fades on camera.
I was saying, George, you're going ghost.
So we recently had our NFL mock draft on Instagram Live for those of you that tuned in. And now Kyle Shanahan, and I guess I would say their general manager, whose name escapes me, but basically San Francisco 49er management pretty much agreed that it's Kyle Shanahan that that makes the choice for the draft picks, and the scouts just give their opinion on who they think the pick should be, and Kyle Shanahan has the last say. So Kyle Shanahan has openly come out and said, I like Mac Jones. My scouts love Trey Lance, but I like Mac Jones. And it's pretty much boiled down to, and he even said it, we could have stayed at 12 and hoped one of those guys fell to us, but we felt that it would be better to be at 3 and have our choice of guys, which confuses me because that kind of logic would make sense if you have the number 2 pick. Because if you have the number 2 pick, it's all right, you don't have Trevor Lawrence. Like, Kyle Shanahan to me sounds like he's coaching for the New York Jets because it's the New York Jets that have a choice of all the quarterbacks. We're all assuming that they're going with Kyle Wilson because that's what the media does. They just say, oh, this guy had a great pro day. Now he's all of a sudden the second best player, despite the fact that Justin Fields, before the college football playoffs, was the second best quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. Let's not forget that fact, that factoid that the ESPN media threw out there. But that's the Jets' role. They have the choice of quarterbacks to choose at number 2. They could go with whoever they want, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Kyle Wilson. The 49ers are basically getting the sloppy seconds, I guess, or sloppy thirds of the NFL draft.
Depending on how you want to look at it.
I mean, it's certainly one perspective. But you're basically getting the third best quarterback, which doesn't scream to me that, oh, well, this quarterback, he's going to win us a Super Bowl because Jimmy Garoppolo just took you to the Super Bowl 2 years ago when he was healthy, when the entire 49er team was healthy. And it just shocks me that they're basically, Mac Jones is basically, we talked about it, the best comparison is he's that pro-style offense, doesn't run that much, talked extensively on our NFL mock draft, but they show their cards essentially, unless they're just goofing all of us and they're going to go a Justin Fields or a Kyle
Yep.
or someone else that isn't Kyle Wilson or whoever the Jets don't pick. But it's intriguing that they will come out and say this with just days going into the draft.
Yeah, I'm shocked because much like you, I thought surely they would, I almost felt like they would know where they were going by now, like almost like they're pulling out legs. They know who they're selecting, but it seemed like they really do not, and it seemed like of a question of, I guess, who they like more. And if Kyle Shanahan really does get the last say in those situations, then you have to assume they're going to take Mac Jones. I'll bite my tongue on my thought about that, or what I think about Mac Jones and why I think it will be a mistake for them to take him. But if this is true, then it gets real interesting, because then you start worrying about, okay, well, if this is all true, where does Justin Fields head up? Where does he end? Because Justin Fields, in a lot of people's eyes, is the third best available quarterback in this year's draft.
Yeah. And I was looking through some blogs on Instagram. A lot of Jets fans are afraid the Patriots are going to trade up because now it's been revealed that the Patriots are interested in Justin Fields.
Which they should be.
And they have 100% the right to be interested in Justin Fields and have them come in. I personally picked them to pick Trey Lance. And in our mock draft, in case you didn't watch the Instagram live, I had the Broncos trade up with the Falcons to pick Justin Fields. But if that doesn't happen, I mean, Justin Fields is by far, if the Jets, whatever reason, choose Kyle Wilson and the Niners pick Mac Jones, Justin Fields is by far the best quarterback available.
Yep.
By far. It's just, and I know there's been speculation with the Atlanta pick at number 4. They're also trying to move Julio Jones, but there's that June 1st designation where if they trade him before June 1st, they take a cap hit, but if they trade him after, they save $50 million, which is just a huge decision to make that late into the year. But maybe there's been talk that maybe Carolina at number 8, if they could make a move. They could make a move to move out of 8. They've been talking about trading back. And even though I had Kyle Pitts go to Carolina, and you had Mekhi Parsons replacing Luke Kuechly, they could trade back, acquire more assets, and say, Sam, you're here for 2 years. We're going to build around you. We're going to get all the pieces we can in return for this number 8 pick. And someone else could make that trade. Now, I don't know who that team would be. It could be New England. But it's very intriguing that Justin Fields is starting to dwindle down. And I don't think it's I don't think it has anything to do with race. I know Stephen A. Smith went on ESPN and mentioned how black quarterbacks tend to fall in the draft, which I don't think so, because we've seen Deshaun Watson go in the top 10, top 15. Patrick Mahomes went top 15. Lamar Jackson really is the only one you could think of that went past the top 10, top 15 into number 32. But personally, I think that's because a lot of NFL execs are just ridiculously stupid to let him go to 32. And I honestly, leading up to that 2018 draft, everyone loves that 2018 draft. Everyone loves talking about, Josh Allen, he had a great year. Baker Mayfield is doing great, but Lamar Jackson was right there at 32. He was supposed to go in most people's mock drafts at numbers. I believe it was number 3 to the Jets, or before they made the trade with the Colts to the New York Jets at number 6. That would have been something else if you had Todd Bowles and Lamar Jackson running a Chan Gailey type offense, the West Coast offense.
West Coast system. Mm-hmm.
But Justin Fields, he's got the arm. He's shown against top talent like Clemson University, Trevor Lawrence. He can play. He can ball. He just needs that protection, like most of these quarterbacks do. I don't know who could pick him up.
Yeah, I think if Mac Jones is selected with that third pick by San Francisco, it gets real interesting because I know in our mock draft you had Denver moving up. New England can move up. They'll be in play, I'm sure. Pittsburgh, although they have to ship a whole lot to probably get up there to get one of these guys. New Orleans, who's shown in the past, is willing to get real aggressive to go get a player of they really think highly of. There's maybe even Philly. They have now secured so many picks by trading back to where they are now. If Justin Fields fall and they really want Justin Fields, they can make a play to go get him. There's just a lot of teams who are going to be sitting back after the 49ers pick. So I feel like a lot of people don't have Mac Jones rated that high. I feel like the 49ers honestly have Mac Jones rated pretty high. I feel like in comparison to other teams.
Because the biggest gripe Justin Fields has against him is that Ohio State quarterbacks necessarily, historically, don't transition well into the NFL. But the same thing can be said about Alabama quarterbacks.
Exactly.
We've seen so many Alabama quarterbacks on historic teams under Nick Saban, historic defenses, historic offenses, incredible run games, and they just ultimately failed in the NFL. None of them really panned out to what we all expected. And
nope.
I only chose Mac Jones to go to the 49ers because they've openly said it, we're picking Mac Jones. So unless Kyle Shanahan is pulling on our leg and he's waiting for the Jets to fumble and get Justin Fields instead of Kyle Wilson so they can get Kyle Wilson, or they're just going to pick Justin Fields regardless, even though they've been hyping up Mac Jones, it just boggles my mind that Alabama's quarterback can be rated so highly, but Justin Fields from Ohio State doesn't get that same pressure added on. Because they're both necessary, and you can argue that Justin Fields, he is faster.
Yes.
He has a better arm.
Does.
And he's more pro ready.
Maybe, yeah.
Possibly, you can make the argument. You can make the argument for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just really interesting. And I hate hearing guys like Mel Kiper. Mind you, Mel Kiper Jr. of ESPN, that draft expert. When Lamar Jackson came out, he said Lamar Jackson should think about going to a wide receiver because no one will pick him as a Louisville quarterback. I said, okay, you do that. You tell teams that. Don't know who your source is, but I'm sure they don't got a job now.
Exactly. Those same people probably are not working to this day.
Yeah.
And my thing is, George, and why I keep going back to it, is what source, what information did the Niners get to move up back to third? To move up to third to draft Mac Jones.
And because they moved, because I understand the move to third,
but to get Mac Jones, to get
to 3 weeks in advance,
to get Mac Jones,
to get Mac Jones,
who I don't think anyone had going in the top 5.
No,
and I didn't even hear buzz of any team thinking about taking him in the top 8.
No, and the thing is, he was rated just above Kyle Trask, and that's because people saw Kyle Trask versus Mac Jones at SEC Championship and said, well, Mac Jones is clearly the better quarterback than Kyle Trask, so he's going to be above him. It was always Trevor Lawrence, then Justin Fields, and Kyle Wilson.
Yeah.
And then Trey Lance was that Project Carson Wentz potential.
Yeah.
That's how it was for weeks, and it could be that we're looking at ESPN, Fox, all these mock drafts coming out and all these draft analysts with quotation marks that are saying, oh, well, Mac Jones, he fits the 49ers style offense. And that's I mentioned this on our Instagram Live. That's what boggles my mind is that if Mac Jones fits Kyle Shanahan's system, then why don't the Jets have him rated higher? Because the Jets are going to run Kyle Shanahan's system.
Yep.
Their whole hiring was based off that their offense was a LaFleur offense taught by Kyle Shanahan, taught by Mike Shanahan, and that they're going to bring that San Francisco offense to New York. So why don't the Jets have him rated higher? Why do the Jets have Kyle Wilson and Justin Fields as their choice 1A, 1B, while San Francisco has Mac Jones? Why isn't Mac Jones 1A, 1B, 1C with Kyle Wilson and Justin Fields? Because they're running the same plays. Essentially, they're running the same offense. So wouldn't it make sense that Mac Jones would be higher on the Jets' radar than on the 49ers?
You would imagine.
You would imagine. Realistically, logistically thinking, that's what you would believe.
Unless the Jets feel Zach Wilson is a can't-miss prospect. That could be the only thing. If they feel he's a can't-miss, then obviously you have to take Wilson. But I think at the end of the day, I do not see. I made this point in the IG Live as well. There is no differential outside of salary of Jimmy Garoppolo and Mac Jones. They're essentially one of the same player. Neither one of them are mobile. They both don't have strong arms. They both are very stationary. They're very much in rhythm quarterbacks. So for what reason would you move off of Jimmy Garoppolo for Mac Jones outside of just salary? Because Trey Lance and Justin Fields are both going to be much better athletes on the next level than Mac Jones ever will be.
And when you do draft Mac Jones or whoever it may be, the return you're going to get for Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be the same return you're going to get for what you gave up to move to number 3.
Yeah. I almost felt like the 49ers should have just moved Jimmy Garoppolo before they moved up to 3. Yeah. If this is what they knew they were going to do. Because
or at least wait until the week of the draft to move Jimmy G. And then just say, all right, we're open for business. We want to move up.
Yeah.
And then you can't be too scared because teams know you're already looking for a quarterback because you have the ammunition from the Jimmy G trade and the compensation. But enough about the 49ers because we're just going to be running around in circles, confused as to what they're doing. I want to talk about real quick, since we have a little more time left, hopefully, about this Super League.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that don't care or don't know, soccer or football, as the rest of the world knows it, has gotten pretty big in the news. Now, unlike the great United States of America, Europe doesn't have a singular league or association for their soccer clubs. They have the Premier League in the United Kingdom. They have La Liga in Italy. They have other leagues in other regions of Europe. And instead of a Super Bowl or an NBA Finals or a Stanley Cup, they have what's called the Champions League, which is the goal of every club, which is pretty much an invitation where if you finish in the top 4, or it's think of it as the March Madness for soccer, where you finish in the top 4 of your conference or your league, you get an automatic bid. If you win first place, then you win the league or the league or your conference, right? You're the conference champs, right? You win the Premier League. The other 3, the second, third, and fourth seeds, they get an automatic bid to the Champions League, but you get the advantage of being the champion. Okay. Then there's 2 other teams that have to fight out in, I guess, the first 16 or whatever it's called, the play-in tournaments, I guess. And that's the first round of the Champions League to determine the smaller. They just miss the top 4 guaranteed spots, so they're like on the bubble, I guess would be the right term. And the thing with soccer and the rest of the world, for that matter, is that the conferences are set up different. So you don't get a lot of players and teams get salary compensation, a huge bonus if they make the championship game or the tournament, right? Mm-hmm. But if you fail, for example, there's no such thing as tanking in soccer, because if you don't get the necessary points, you don't get rewarded, and you finish in the top 2 or top 4 or the bottom 2 or bottom 4 of your conference or league, then you get what's called demoted. So there's no reward for getting a number 1 selection for a 16, 17-year-old that's pro eligible. you get demoted to the lower division. So there's soccer clubs everywhere, but you get demoted to a lower division, and then you have to win that division to get back into the Premier League. And what goes into that is that you lose money, you lose ability to attract free agents in the transfer market. When players are in the last year or two of their deal and they want a better situation, so you lose that opportunity. What happened is that apparently some top teams, or current top teams, decided that the Champions League rewards were not enough compensation to warrant them staying and participating in that tournament. So they decided, Manchester United, Manchester City, about six teams, I believe it was, from the Premier League, which is the English conference, a couple teams from La Liga, I believe it was Barcelona, and a couple others, I forget who, and a total of 12 teams it was, I think, decided to join this Europe League, this super Europe League or something like that. And basically, this was a way to say we're not going to participate in the March Madness. We're not going to participate in the NFL playoffs. We're going to separate ourselves from those leagues and create our own tournament. That's going to be in the middle of the summer, around the same time the Champions League are. And obviously, if you're a television company like beIN Sports, Univision, or whatever, Fox Sports, you're going to want to show the big teams on your television program, which means you're going to bring in a lot more money. Now, the thing with soccer is that they're not franchises. These are teams that have been built for centuries, where fans have spent their last earned dollar to try to put their money in to watch their team, to make sure that their team stays alive and stays in competition, and they don't get shut down. And apparently, it took 3 years to develop this Europe Super League.
Oh.
And in less than 2 days, after they announced the teams, they announced their plans to play this summer, they shut it down. They shut it the fuck down. The fans were protesting like crazy. Never in my life have I seen it looked like Philly winning the Super Bowl, but they were angry. But they were angry that and the owners, mind you, they do come. They are American owners. So the same owners of the Boston Red Sox owns one of the teams in the Super League. And the whole concept of just spitting in the face of soccer and what soccer was really all about was just so insulting. It's almost as if you, as a Carolina Panthers fan, being there from the time they became an expansion team to when they went to the Super Bowl with Jake Delhomme, to when they drafted Cam Newton #1 overall, to when they made to the second Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning, to now they have Sam Darnold, and all of a sudden for Carolina to say, you know what, these playoffs are unfair. We're going to team up with the Patriots, the 49ers, and the Rams, and we're going to create our own playoffs. We're going to have our own Super Bowl, and we're going to give it to ESPN, we're going to give it to Fox, and we're going to make sure that we get the money because this is unfair that you guys have Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and all these top-notch players on your teams, and we never get a shot at the Super Bowl. It's almost as if that were to happen. And it's just, why would you do that?
Yeah,
outside of the only reason, greed. You want the money and you want the exposure. That's it. And
that's what it sounds like.
And it goes against the essence of what soccer in Europe was all about, where it's just where it's just generational fandom. Where it's like my grandfather's grandfather rooted for this team back in like the 1910s or whatever like that. Like it was always tradition to go to the opening day of Manchester United versus Manchester City derby. It's just all this tradition just gone for the sake of money. And now I believe over half of the teams that initially said they were going to sign up and participate in this Super League have already said no because their fans are really angry and will not go to the games. And that it's a huge cluster. It's a mess because they initially agreed to it. They put the paperwork in. They're talking to TV sponsors. They already figured out dates, planned this out, and now they have to scrap the whole thing. And it's almost just like fans are glad it's gone.
Oh, sure. I believe
But
that.
the fact that it was so close to coming true, that they had planned this for years, that this was in the works, and that it had the fan reaction been anything less negative, they would have rolled through with it.
I think that's what is the most frustrating part. 'Cause I remember, George, when you told me that. It was funny, ladies and gentlemen. George texted me. He was like, "Well, I have an idea for an episode," and I'm like, "Well, let me hear it." And then when he told me, I was like, "Is that allowed?" Like that was like the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like anything the NBA would allow. So
because it's so weird, and it's insulting because of this. Currently, right now, as we are alive, Barcelona has Lionel Messi, Juventus has Cristiano Ronaldo, the two best players in the entire sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their teams are saying, well, we're going to go. And here's another tidbit. Because they chose to start this own Super League, the conferences they are leaving are saying, well, technically, you're still part of us. So you're not allowed to play any of our teams that remain in our conference, in our leagues. You're not allowed to travel with your national team representative in the World Cup and all these other worldwide events where you can represent your country. You're not allowed to do that anymore because now you have the Super League. You got this big Super League that you can participate and have your own little fan club in. So you don't need the World Cup anymore. You don't need any other cup that your country needs you for. So you don't need to do any of that. So this basically boils down to teams that are popular right now deciding that we're going to create our own league, and the popularity is going to maintain forever because we have the two best players in the world competing against each other all the time, and it's going to be great. But the thing is, they're going to retire soon. So who are you going to have? This is like if the Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets, the Suns and the Sixers all decide to have their own basketball playoff tournament. Not even associated with the NBA. They say, you know what, we are tired of playing the Pistons in the first round every playoff. We're tired of sweeping the Thunder. So you guys can have fun with the NBA with the Larry O'Brien. We're going to create our own one, and it's going to have LeBron James. It's going to have Kevin Durant, James Harden. It's going to have Chris Paul and Devin Booker. It's going to have Embiid and Ben Simmons. And everyone's going to want to watch that. No one wants to watch the Knicks play the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Championship. And it's just, okay, like that's fun and all, but that's ruining the sport of basketball. Because now you're just, it's the banana boat times 100.
Yeah.
Basically, where it's just, where's the competition now? Because once those players retire, it's just going to be terrible teams. Because I guarantee you, once AD and LeBron call it a career, what are the Lakers going to do? They're going to have some guy from UNC that's 19 years old, played a year of basketball, and needs like 3 or 4 years to get into his game in the NBA.
Huh.
So it's just very. I just want to bring it up just because it's very alarming that something like this was planned
and almost went
executed
through.
Almost to perfection.
It almost went through.
And it almost went through had it not been for the fans. This is truly the first time fans actually created a huge form of change, where their outcry created a worldwide phenomenon of change, where they're saying we don't want this. We're not going to buy tickets to your team. We're not going to go to the games. We're not going to watch TV. We're not going to watch it on TV. We're going to support the rest of the teams that are actually staying committed to their fans and not being sullied by greed.
Sounds like, George, a situation that soccer players need to address, if that's the word.
Yeah. Like we like after this situation ends, we need a Cristiano Ronaldo, who's by far the best and most popular player in soccer worldwide, and say I don't. When I first heard the news, I never agreed with it. Lionel Messi saying I never liked the Super League. I would never have played. But you didn't hear anything from that. You heard from former players who were furious with the idea, but you never heard the current players on those teams that were announced saying, I don't agree with this at all. Buy out my contract, do what you got to do. I'm not participating in this. But that's what I wanted to talk about with the Super League. Is there anything we missed?
I don't think so. I think we covered just about everything leading into draft week.
If this hasn't made you subscribe, then let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because I would like to know how we can reel you in to hit that subscribe button, to like this video. Leave a like on the video. Now that you're at the end and you stuck with us through this hour-plus episode
of ranting
and discussion. But leave a like on the video, subscribe to us, hit the bell notification. If you're not following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just follow us there. And most importantly, if you want to keep up to date with our thoughts outside of the podcast, follow us on Instagram at Off the Bench Pod. Follow us there. We go on IG Live, unplanned, but you have to follow us if you want to know exactly when we are going live. And be sure to tune in for the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft on YouTube. We are going to be live for the entirety of the first round, or at least I will be. Roland might have other duties.
I'm around, baby.
So we're going to be around, hopefully, knock on wood. It's not going to go into well past midnight like it did last year.
But
it's going to be in Cleveland. Roger Goodell got vaccinated. He gets to hug the players.
Oh, God.
So I guess that's a thing to look forward to.
I guess. Cringe, maybe.
Well, I'm going to at least start a little early from the NFL draft. We're going to go through our mock drafts one last time before Trevor Lawrence pick. Mm-hmm. Before the Jaguars pick for Trevor Lawrence gets announced. We're just going to go through our mock draft again, see if just comparing to what we see live and seeing, wow, like we didn't really patch that or did that trade. We're going to go through it all. But make sure you subscribe.
I might even have an updated list by then. Who knows?
But make sure you subscribe so you are the first to join us. So have a good night, guys. Take care.